Aircraft making a condensation trail is very similar in many ways to when you go outside on a cold day and exhale. You create a condensation trail. That little cloud is a condensation trail. Now, if you take a 2-mile walk on a cold day and you can turn around and you can see your condensation trail tracking all the way back for 2 miles. That's how crazy it is to think that what we're looking in the sky is actually condensation trails.
The contrails, not the chemical, the contrails occur because of cold air, minus 30. It takes a high altitude, around 30,000 feet plus. There's carbon dioxide and water vapor in that exhaust. That turns to ice crystals, and that's what you see, the white stream behind it. Those white crystals of ice warm up, dissolve, and the smoke goes away. And it never lasts more than a minute. What we're seeing now, and I first could not believe it, and I started looking at the skies, and these are not normal. They're not natural. There's something going on. I don't know who it is or why they're doing it. All I can testify is it's not natural and it's not normal.
What part of the problem is we're not dealing with a human, we're dealing with psychopathic humans, and then we're dealing with a mind which is in fact not human, and it regards us as animals. And then you begin to think, well, how do we treat animals? And you get nervous. I get very nervous about this,
The project is referred to as the woodpecker system. It involves the transmissions of extremely low frequency ELF waves at about 10 hertz using Tesla transmitters in Chernobyl, Gomel, The transmitters generate electromagnetic transmissions that produce ELF scalar grid over the United States. This is done by transmitting these low frequency scalar waves in pairs so that they converge at a predetermined point on the Earth's surface and cause a disruption of the atmosphere. This technology can be used to alter the course of the jet stream and set up long-term weather blocks.
In the country, and we are also underneath one of the busiest air corridors in the world. When I started to find out about chemtrails, I started to look up and I realized that, yeah, these trails do linger all day, and they go horizon to horizon, and you look to your old photographs and you don't see these kind of trails. So I suppose when the penny dropped was when I saw what in the world are they spraying. That's really when this whole thing kind of made sense to me, because it was explained in a documentary. People knew what they were talking about, and it just made a lot of sense. This is a government program to control the weather, and if you think about it, if you want to dominate and control the planet, this is the ultimate weapon to do that. So the Irish media now are normalizing weaponized air as a reality that we must get used to. They are blaming car emissions and coal pollution, but there's no mention of the elephant in the room, the hundreds of millions of tons of substances being sprayed into our atmosphere every year, like aluminium oxide, which David Keith and other geoengineering proponents are proposing spraying into our skies. They will never admit these programs are going on, but we know they are going on because 2004, the Civil Aviation Authority in the UK conducted an investigation into cabin air quality, and one of the peak materials found was aluminium. So what the hell is aluminium doing floating around up at cruising altitude? So now Monsanto miraculously have an aluminium resistant seed that can grow in aluminium contaminated soil. Why would they have such a thing unless they knew of a problem that was down the line or already happening? Last year in 2015, a study came out of Keele University in the UK, and bees were found to have had massive high quantities of aluminium in their brains. This is a big problem. We need bees to keep the food chain sustained and to keep it alive. And now Monsanto have recently bought a bee research company called Biologics in 2012. And they have genetically modified a bee that can only pollinate Monsanto crops. And also, this bee is resistant to all pesticides. So why would they want to design such a Frankenstein creation unless they knew of a problem that already existed or a problem that was in the pipeline? Dementia now is the biggest killer in women in the UK. And what's the main cause of dementia? Aluminium accumulation in the brain cells. We are in the fight of our lives. All sources needed for life to exist are under direct attack from these programs. Oxygen, sunlight, and water. Once you know about this, you have a duty of care to get involved. As a caretaker of this planet, we must all come together to stop these programs, because we can do it. But once you find out this is going on,
spiritual world. And I tell people many times often that we're not carnal beings living in a spiritual world, but rather spiritual beings living in a carnal world. So our origin is a spiritual one. And as I was listening to you, Mr. Tobias, you were indicating and talk about spiritual awakening and things of that nature also as well. I have been speaking to people about what's happening, even in the nation of the United States. It seems there's like a hatred. It seems like there's so much disrespect, dishonor. It is like there's a heavy cloud, a black cloud, basically, from one place to the other is just hovering over the nation one way or another. I mean, people killing cops and people of authority. And we know these things are common through life. Of course, there have been many difficult situations through life. But it seems like we need another spiritual awakening. We need to become God conscious, if you will, with respect to those that may or may not believe in God. But I really believe that there has to be a recognition where we just do not think, okay, this is all just part of life. I really believe that behind all of this, there is a spiritual warfare, and I really believe that more than ever we should unite, recognize, of course, that there is good, there is evil, but recognize that the light will always be stronger than darkness. No matter how dark it is or small, the light will always be stronger. So I wanted to ask you basically, as you were speaking, I know it might be in a different content as to the 60s, the spiritual awakening, but I wanted to know basically, what's your point of view, what's your opinion, what do you foresee? Because I really believe more than ever we need to pray, we need to come to a reality as that.
Well, we need to do that fast. We only got a minute left. Go ahead, Tobias.
Right, well, I empathize with a great deal of what you're engaged with. And I also believe that I think a lot of the problem today is our communications. We have wonderful shows like this one, Coast to Coast, which is open-minded and very positive. And then we have another media which is obsessed with the political and the economic at the expense of everything else.
Everything.
And people's true feelings.
Absolutely. Tobias, thank you. Good luck with the books. How do people get your books, by the way?
Constant respiratory problems that are now epidemic. Is there any connection between this and the growing epidemic rates of other human diseases that are proven to be connected to highly toxic heavy metal exposure? Lab tests from around the globe have long since proven a mountain of heavy metals like aluminum, barium, and strontium are raining down on all of us. These metals are the primary elements named in climate engineering patents. Yes, this is connected to the dirty, dingy, often checkerboard striped toxic mess that we see in our skies day in and day out. If you don't believe it, it doesn't matter. You're still breathing this contamination with every breath, and it's building up in your body. Several dozen lab tests from Shasta and Siskiyou counties alone, about 70 I believe, prove this beyond any shadow of a doubt. Why aren't we being told? Why don't meteorologists and institutions like the Weather Channel say a word about climate engineering? Because they're owned by corporations like Blackstone and Bain Capital, corporations all connected to the umbilical of the global power structure. Does anyone believe the paid actors at the Weather Channel would tell the truth about climate engineering, knowing their jobs, or perhaps much more, depend on them saying whatever they're told to say? Perhaps we could ask Weather Channel meteorologist Nicholas Wiltgen. Unfortunately, though, we can't, because he died last month in what Fox News said was, quote, an apparent suicide. His car was crashed through an Atlanta parking garage and plowed into an adjacent hotel. That's a strange way to commit suicide, but perhaps let's ask the meteorologists at the National Weather Service or the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. But no, again, because virtually all the National Weather Service and NOAA government employees are still under a federal gag order. Don't believe me, please. Investigate it for yourself. If you're willing to look at the truth, if you want to see meteorologists going to unimaginable lengths of lying to try and explain away the completely unprecedented and completely engineered weather scenarios that are now the norm, watch the Weather Channel for a while. Connect the dots. Watch the behavior of the Weather Channel actors as they give truly an ever more complex and